Alrighty, so we're doing another video talking about Marathon. I really thought that my last video where I talk about why Marathon is so hated would be the last one, but there has been a lot of discourse online about the player account and more specifically Steam charts. People have been arguing almost non-stop since the game came out about whether the numbers matter or not, or whether the game is a success or flop. To be honest, it's all annoying and I hate it. My perspective on the game is simply that I'm not interested and that's that. It doesn't appeal to me and that's alright. I don't go online arguing with people about it, saying what they should like or dislike, and I don't care that I'm not interested in it. But this whole Steam chart discussion has really bothered me. It even got to the point where I saw a post on Reddit, to no surprise, saying that Steam charts should just be taken down altogether, leading people to have no idea of the numbers for games. This idea sucks. We are in an era where developers, publishers, companies, whoever are not that transparent to us, so whatever data we have access to is very valuable. Heck, back in the day, Call of Duty, yes, you heard me correctly, Call of Duty showed the number of players online and even the number of players in a certain game mode. That's gone now. You don't see that in any more Call of Duties. Now, some say that Steam charts provide no value whatsoever and shouldn't be taken into consideration. That's just not true. While Steam charts does not provide the full picture because it of course lacks console numbers, it does show something very important, which is trends. Looking at Marathon specifically, we see that the trend is pretty steady. The player retention is pretty good with 60 to 70,000 players during the peak, and this is good to see. So if the trend on Steam is this, there's no reason to not believe that console is going to have a similar trend. In no world would a game have a 90% drop off on Steam but a 10% drop off on console, or steady numbers, or even an increase in players. Something else that bothers me is when Steam charts are positive, say for example Slay the Spire 2, Battlefield 6, Helldivers 2, Power World, Black Myth Wukong, etc. You see almost no pushback from anyone saying, oh well, we can't consider it a success just yet because we don't know the console numbers. Another problem is that people assume that console is always larger than PC, or that PC is like 5% of the total population, which is not true. Not every game has the same distribution of players, and also PC has grown a lot in the past 10 years. No longer is PC gaming seen as a niche or for the top 1%. Marathon could have more PC players than console players, but we don't know that. We lack the data. This whole Marathon Steam charts debacle has blown up so much to where other devs have spoken on it from other companies. Rebecca Ford from Digital Extremes, the company that makes Warframe and Soulframe, spoke on it some earlier. Now, I have to grab the tweet from Pupsker's video because I don't have Twitter, so thank you, Pupsker. Look at that smile, just a man happy to be around. But Rebecca posted a few tweets. She started off jokingly saying, naming the next Warframe we release player count to pollute the searches and defend against the discourse. And then she goes on to say, when Warframe released, we had 435 other titles compete with for the attention of millions of Steam users. Now games have 20,014 other games in the same year for many millions of Steam users that have already been exposed to 80,000 plus prior releases they might have liked. And someone said, or devs could do what you and yours did, make a good/decent game that gets enough retention to fund further development. And Rebecca continues, we got incredibly lucky. We were broke. There were less than 500 other games released the year Warframe released. Every day people care about Warframe as a gift, and we're only as good as our last update. Now I am going to push back on this a little bit. I love Rebecca and Digital Extremes as well as Warframe. It's a game I play a lot of, and I don't think Rebecca is wrong by any means. I just think it's not the full picture. There are a lot more games coming out today, absolutely, but so many of them end up nowhere, struggling to get even 10 players. A lot of competition, but when your competition is a dying fish in the Sahara Desert, it's not hard to beat. And something I think she kinda implied but didn't directly mention is a lot of competition with older games. Call of Duty, Apex, Fortnite, Roblox, etc. still take up a lot of players and their time. Now Warframe came out 13 years ago, and that time was very different. We're talking 2013. Gaming has changed a lot in even just the past 5 or 6 years. But more importantly, something that worked in Digital Extreme's favor can be found on their Steam page. If you look at the developer, you see Digital Extremes, of course. But if you look at the publisher, you again see Digital Extremes. They're self-published. So Digital Extremes was able to take the risk involved with continuing to try to support their game and improve it even if the money wasn't there. They are solely responsible for how the game goes and what their goals are, but they took that risk, and of course it paid off very well. Bungie, on the other hand, is published by Sony. This means they have goals to reach set by investors, shareholders, Sony, that higher up nonsense. If the goal isn't reached on time, they probably aren't even given the chance to take that risk in trying to improve the game over time, even if the money is drying up. Instead, Sony would probably say, didn't meet the goal on time? Alright, pull the plug, shut the game down, lay off 40% of the workforce, or even worse, shut down Bungie entirely, which I don't think would happen, by the way. Really, what I think would happen is layoffs, which still suck, but you get my point. When games involve shareholders and investors, it's hard to get that chance to make a comeback like Warframe or No Man's Sky did. Instead, you get Highguard. Highguard could have taken a risk and tried to support the game over the year, improving it to what the players want, but what happened instead? Layoffs happened, like 2 or 3 weeks after, and now the game is getting shut down. Even when a game does well, bad news still comes. Battlefield 6 had an insane launch. Yes, looking at Steam charts again, but that's not a problem, is it? Because it's positive, huh? 750,000 on Steam alone, even beating Call of Duty for once as the top seller. And yet, despite all of this, 2 or 3 days ago, there were layoffs announced for Battlefield. Sorry, my voice is kind of dying. I don't know what's happening. It almost does not even matter whether your game is a failure or success with these types of higher ups. Digital Extremes is like one of a kind, really, where they really value their players and their community, and they value their employees. So again, all respect to Rebecca and her message, but gaming is just different today, sadly. I know I kind of veered off of Steam charts for a little bit there, but continuing on with it, I think the bigger problem is just people hoping for a game's downfall. There are some people that point to Steam charts in a negative manner because they're genuinely concerned for the game and want it to do well. People worry about investing into a game that's doomed. They want to know that the future of the game is okay, but there are some people that look at Steam charts and go, see, the game's dying, I knew it, told y'all it was dead on arrival. I have not seen the Twitter or Reddit discussions on this because but I have seen some YouTube videos that almost seem like they're praying for the game's downfall, which is just weird and stupid, calling it the next Concord or Highguard when really Steam charts show quite the opposite. Concord had absurdly low numbers, which spelt its doom, and Highguard had an absurd drop-off, which spelt its doom. Meanwhile, Marathon, as I mentioned earlier, is pretty consistent, and really the player count is fine for the players. I'll get into that in a moment. But hoping for a game to fail is just weird. If you don't like a game, there's no problem with that. But competition is good to have because it motivates games to improve and innovate. Also, you should be happy that others are enjoying the game because it's good for them. I don't care for Marathon, but I'm glad that others are enjoying it. So to sum up, Steam charts does not need to be taken away, and it is valuable because it shows trends, which with games being shut down left and right, we need all the data we can get. The problem is with people hoping a game fails. At the end of the day though, none of our thoughts or opinion on this matter because Sony is the one with all the say. We could argue about these numbers all we want to, they don't matter to us. By the way, some try to excuse the numbers by saying it's a niche genre, which is kind of funny with Arc Raider sitting right there drinking tea on a fat stack of cash, but also try telling that to Sony and the shareholders and investors. Anyway, all of what happens next is up to Sony. Maybe Bungie missed revenue goals and Sony is generous and gives them more time to try to cook up and improve the game. Or maybe Sony takes the more predictable route and forces layoffs. Maybe Bungie did hit revenue goals because the game does have microtransactions after all, which we can't predict at all how much money those made. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for now on this topic. I think it's a pretty stupid discussion overall.